Great evening, guys. Thank you very much for joining us again. Yes, thank you for joining us again on another exciting Upgrade Mastery Just for You. Yes, this is the Upgrade Mastery Just for You with Mr. Upgrade. I'm super excited to be here. I don't know about you. This is the first Upgrade Mastery Just for You in the month of February. Yes. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to do this again with you. Tell me, how's your week been? My week has been interesting, a very interesting week. A week full of so many things that needs to be done, so many activities, so many reshuffling, renovating, and all of those things happening all together. And it's been so much. But yes, you guys are important, so we have to make our time to be here to do this again. And like I told you the last time, we're going to begin a new series. Yes, the series this time is going to be something you would love, something you're going to learn from, something you're going to enjoy, because there's so much to learn from this series. And I think the series may take us the whole month of February. Let's see how we're able to wrap everything together. But today, we're going to begin in earnest, and we are going to begin the conversation on this series. Previously we have had the series on the prodigal son. We talked about the other brother syndrome and the prodigal father. That was a series together. That was where we wrapped up the year last year. And then we got into this year, we talked about the series on Jabez. I told you that that's just the shortest story in scripture, and it was very impactful, Jabez. And then we looked at the story of Jonah. That took us through in January, Jonah part 1, Jonah part 2, Jonah part 3. And we looked at how Jonah was quite an interesting character to study and to learn from, and how it applies to our very day-to-day life today, right? So not just a story in the Bible, but something that applies to us here and now. And then we look at the next story that we're going to be talking about today. And this story is, drum roll, Joseph. Yes, Joseph is the story that we're going to talk about today. And this story is something that we really need to look at and discuss in detail. Many times we only look at the Joseph story from the fact that, he had a dream, and then he was thrown into the pit, and then he was sent to Potiphar's house as a slave, and then he went to prison, and then he became prime minister, and then his dream came true, and all of those things. But there are so many areas to Joseph's life that we need to look at and that we need to explore as it relates to us today, right? And that's what we hope to be able to achieve on this conversation as we talk about Joseph, because there's so much that you need to learn from the life and the character of the guy called Joseph, right? It will really change your perspective to a lot of things. Literally, it will change your perspective to a lot of things. And I hope that this would really be of immense help and learning for you. Okay, so this is the Upgrade Mastery Just for You. And like we always do, we share your feedbacks of the week. What are the things that happened for you this week? What are your learnings? What are your experiences? What are your challenges? And what are the things that stood out for you in the week that you really want to talk about, right? Let's look at those things, and then we can call it a wrap. We can call it a wrap when we look at all of these things. Okay, so let's make progress. We're going to talk about the story of Joseph. The story of Joseph. And that takes us back to the book of Genesis, right? That's where you find that story of Joseph. So we're going to be looking at the book of Genesis. And we're going to start off from where it actually begins from. Genesis chapter 37. Yeah, Genesis chapter 37. That's where that story begins from. And that's where we are going to kick off this story from, to explain a lot of things. And I hope that at the end of this conversation today, you'd have been able to pick at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 amazing lessons from this part 1 of the story of Joseph. Now, I'm going to try our best to compress some of the chapters into some lessons that we can take together, so we can really just be able to go through it all through the month of February, because this month of February, we're going to have amazing 4 Fridays. And for those Fridays, we want to be able to see how much we can rake in and we can fix while we do this, right? Are you here? It is making sense to you, right? Okay, so let's make progress. Genesis chapter 37, where this story begins from. So this is what I would do. I would read the story and then I will come back to start to explain some points in the story. Do you understand? So that we can follow it together. So this is more like a Bible study, but it's not necessarily a Bible study. It's a teaching session where you get to just learn, right? So get your notepads, get your mind open, and let's get into the gist. Like I say, this is the gist that we have for today. And today we're going to look at Joseph part 1. So Genesis 37, let's begin. You see, now Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. I know the father Isaac, right? The father Isaac, Jacob and Esau, the two twin he had, right? Now, this is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zippah, the father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. I think I want to use another translation that you would really love for this. Let me look for the Living Bible, right? I like the Living Bible. There's the way you put things that it just makes things come alive, right? Let me use the Living Bible translation for this. I'm currently using the NIV, but let me see if I can use the Living Bible for this. I kind of like the way the Living Bible puts translation somehow. Okay, so that Jacob settled in the land of Canaan where his father lived. Jacob's son Joseph was now 17 years old. Remember how Joseph was born? Joseph was the first child of Rachel. Remember Rachel? Backtrack to that story. Rachel was that love of Jacob that he decided to serve 7 years for rather than take wages. And then when he felt he was cheated, he found out he was cheated, he served another 7 years for Rachel. Right? And that process, he was married to Leah, and then he married Rachel, and then Rachel didn't have children. Leah had children, Rachel didn't have children. So Rachel at some point told Jacob to go into her maid so that she could have children through her maid. And Jacob did that and he had children. Then Leah saw that Rachel did that. Leah also gave her maid to Jacob, and Jacob had children from them. So these were the children that Jacob had. He had from Leah's maid, he had from Rachel's maid, he had from Leah herself, and then finally he had a son from Rachel, which was Joseph. Now, because Joseph was that son, first son from this beloved Rachel, Jacob had a certain kind of affinity towards Joseph. And I'm going to tell you about that as it regards to parenting, right? Okay, so let's make progress still on Joseph. Now it happened that Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other children because Joseph was born to him in his old age. I was getting old, and this was when Rachel and I had a child, right? So one day, Jacob gave him a special gift, a brightly colored coat. The King James calls it the coat of many colors, right? His brothers, of course, noticed his father's partiality, and consequently, they hated Joseph. They couldn't say a kind word to him. One night, Joseph had a dream and promptly reported the details to his brothers, causing even deeper hatred. Listen to this, he proudly announced. "We're out in the field binding sheaves, and my sheaves stood up, and your sheaves all gathered around it and bowed low before it. So you want to be our king, do you?" His brothers derided, and they hated him both for the dream and for his cocky attitude. So, and then he had another dream and told his brothers, "Listen to my latest dream," he boasted. "The sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed before me." This time he told his father as well as his brothers, but his father rebuked him. "What is this?" he asked. "Shall I indeed and your mother and brothers come and bow before you?" His brothers were fit to be tied concerning this affair, but his father gave it quite a bit of thought and wondered what it all meant. One day, Joseph's brothers took his father's flock to Shechem to graze them there. A few days later, Israel called for Joseph and told him, "Your brothers are over in Shechem grazing the flocks. Go and see how they are getting along and how it is with the flocks, and bring me word." "Very good," Joseph replied. So he traveled to Shechem from his home at Hebron Valley. A man noticed him wandering in the fields. "Where are you? Who are you looking for?" he asked. "For my brothers and their flocks," Joseph replied. "Have you seen them?" "Yes," the man said. "They are no longer here. I heard your brothers say they were going to Dothan." So Joseph followed them to Dothan and found them there. But when they saw him coming, recognizing him in the distance, they decided to kill him. "Here comes that master dreamer," they exclaimed. "Come on, let's kill him and toss him into a well and tell father that a wild animal had eaten him. Then we will see what will become of all his dreams." But Reuben hoped to spare Joseph's life. "Let us not kill him," he said. "We shed no blood. Let's throw him alive into this world here, and that way he would die without our touching him." Reuben was planning to get him out later and return him to his father. So when Joseph got there, they pulled off his brightly colored robe and threw him into an empty well. There was no water in it. Then they sat down for supper. Suddenly they noticed a string of camels coming towards them in the distance, probably Ishmaelite traders who were taking gum, spices, and herbs from Gilead to Egypt. "Look there," Judah said to the others. "Here comes some Ishmaelite. Let's sell Joseph to them. Why kill him and have a guilty conscience? Let's not be responsible for his death, for after all, he's our brother." And his brothers agreed. So when the traders came by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the well and sold him for 20 pieces of silver, and they took him along to Egypt. Some time later, Reuben, who was away when the traders came by, returned to get Joseph out of the well. When Joseph wasn't there, he ripped at his clothes in anguish and frustration. "The child is gone, and where shall I go?" he wept to his brothers. Then the brothers killed a goat and spattered his blood on Joseph's coat, and took the coat to his father and asked him to identify it. "We found this in the field," they told him. "Is it Joseph's coat or not?" Their father recognized it at once. "Yes," he sobbed. "It is my son's coat. A wild animal has eaten him. Joseph is without doubt torn in pieces." Then Israel tore his garments and put on sackcloth and mourned for his son in deepest mourning for many weeks. His family all tried to comfort him, but it was no use. "I would die in mourning for my son," he would say, and then break down and cry. Meanwhile, in Egypt, the traders sold Joseph to Potiphar, an officer of the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Potiphar was captain of the palace guard, the chief executioner. Yes, so this is the end of chapter 37 of Genesis, right? This is the beginning of Joseph's story. Now, there are a few points I want to pick out from here, and I hope to shed more light on that would really help us, right? Now, the first thing I want us to look at here that we'll learn from Joseph from part 1 is personal values. Now, we live in a world where people don't really have personal values anymore. People no longer uphold some certain standards, some certain values anymore. In fact, that is why we see a lot of moral decadence in the world today because of no personal values. Now, what are personal values? Those are the values you hold dear as a person, the values that you live by. And we could see some of these values in Joseph, right? The first thing we noticed about Joseph was the fact that he was accountable. He was accountable. He had strong sense of accountability. You know why? Because he would report his brothers, which means he report himself and then we report the brothers what they were doing. That was one of the reasons why, apart from the fact that he was a child of old age to Jacob, Jacob loved him because of his accountability, someone who was telling him what was happening. So Jacob had an eye on what was happening with his flocks and with his other sons because of the accountable nature of Joseph. And that was because Joseph had personal values. Yes, he was 17. Yes, he was younger. Yes, his brothers were way older than him. But Joseph had a sense of personal values. So while the brothers would do what is wrong, he would report them to the father. Right? He didn't join in the bandwagon of the brothers to do whatever they like without the knowledge of your father. He would always bring reports to his father. So Joseph had personal values. And one of those personal values was accountability. And you could see how that also played out in later stages of his life because he had personal values. So my question to you is, do you have personal values? Or if you have personal values, what are your personal values? What are the things that you cannot do because of your values? What are the things that you cannot go against because of your values? You know, when you don't have personal values, you become a person with which anything goes because you don't have any personal values. You say yes to anything. You don't say no to anything because you don't have personal values. And that's the first thing we noticed from Joseph was the fact that he had personal values. And one of those personal values that he had was accountability. Joseph was accountable. Joseph was accountable. Right? The second personal value that Joseph had was integrity. Joseph was a person of integrity. And you will see how this will play out later in Potiphar's house. That's why I say, let's take this story together. Let's take the lessons from Joseph together. Joseph had personal integrity. I know integrity many times is who you are when no one is watching. You know, people can try to put up an act when people are looking at them, when the spotlight's on them, try to put up an act. But integrity is who you really are when no one is watching. Integrity is who you are in the dark, where you know no one will ever get to know. Standing by your character shows that you have integrity. So you're not this to this and you are something else another time. No, that's not a person of integrity. And Joseph had that. Joseph was a person of integrity because of his personal values. Because of his personal values. So he had integrity. He could stand up for what is right. Are you getting this? Is this making sense? So you must understand that as a person, what are your personal values? And Joseph gave us a clue of some of the things that should be our personal values. Accountability, integrity. And then another personal values that we could learn from Joseph was his attention to detail. So you see, when he went looking for his brothers at Shechem, they were no longer in Shechem, they had gone to Dothan. He asked around if anyone had seen the brothers, and the man told him, yes, they were here a while back, but now they've gone toward Dothan. He paid attention to details and he went to Dothan. He didn't just go back home and said, oh, Father, they're no longer at Shechem. They've gone away from Shechem. No, he went back. He kept on the journey to look out for them. He paid attention to detail. So What are your personal values as a person? So the first lesson we learned from this story of Joseph is personal values. Lesson number one, personal values. Right? Lesson number one, personal values. So it leaves me wondering, what are the personal values that people have? Yeah, lesson number one, personal values. So what are the personal values that people have? What are the personal values? I will go see the personal values that Joseph had: accountability, integrity, attention to details. From what we just read in Genesis chapter 37, we could see these personal values play out. Lesson number two, right? Lesson number two is a case in parenting. Yes. Lesson number two, lesson two, right? I want to just write this down so I can put it on the screen. Lesson two, a case in parenting. A case in parenting. Now, you may be wondering, but how does this really play out? What is this about? Why a case in parenting? Let me tell you. You see, Jacob did something very, very out of order. And you see this happen a lot in homes where they have many kids, right? You notice that in homes where there are many kids, there is supposedly favorites, right? The one that is loved the most, either by the mom or by the dad. And the others feel like, okay, we are not really loved. We are like the black sheep. So you see, Jacob loved Joseph. Good. But then the other sons felt like Joseph was the reason why they were not loved, or the reason why they are not loved. That already puts Joseph in their bad books. Because in their mind, if Joseph was not here, we probably would have been receiving the love that Joseph is receiving. So, why is this a case in parenting? As parents, we must learn to never make our kids feel like they are loved any less. Yes, we know kids are different, kids are unique in their own right, kids are smart in their own right, but never make anyone feel like the other is loved more. That's why the case in parenting. Because this is where the brothers started to hate Joseph for the fact that he got so much love and affection from their dad than they ever got. Now, they didn't pay attention to the fact that perhaps it's because of the personal values that Joseph had. Perhaps because of the fact that Joseph will always report to their dad. They didn't look at those things. They just felt that because their father loved Joseph the more, that's the reason why their father cannot even love them. So as parents, we must ensure that we let our kids feel loved equally as much as possible. That no one will feel like, oh, it's because of the other child, that's why I'm ignored. Because there are a lot of homes where some kids feel like they are inferior to their siblings because of how much love and affection is being showed to that particular child by their parents. Yes, it's the same parents, same father, same mother. Yet, the other siblings will always feel like this particular child that the parents are showering love and affection is the reason why they don't enjoy love and affection. And then to make matters worse, Jacob now made a coat of many colors for Joseph. Now, you didn't just show him the love alone, you now You now make the love identifiable. And you know, back in the day, a piece of clothing means a lot. That's why I see that when Jesus was being crucified, they did not tear his clothing. Instead, they cast lot for it, for who will get it at the end of the day. That's why I see that when the prodigal son returned home, the father asked for a new robe. So a robe signifies more than just an outfit. It signifies a lot. So giving Joseph a coat of many colors signifies that you are the special one. You are the one in whom I am well pleased. You are the beloved son. And this evening they're like, okay, so what are we now? What are we now? What are we now? This is a very important case in parenting that people need to pay attention to. Yes, you may have more than one child. Never make any child feel less loved. As much as you can, love every child equally. Now, this is not anything because of you, but because of what it does to the child or the children. Because the moment they start to feel like, oh, one is more loved than the others, they start to develop a certain level of hate, envy towards that one that is most loved. And they try to set up that other one for failure. So at least perhaps you would switch the love to them. It breeds an unhealthy rivalry, an unhealthy competition. So the second lesson we learn from this story of Joseph, part 1, is the case in parenting. Jacob, yes, Joseph was a son of your old age. But the love you showed Joseph should not have been to the detriment of the other sons. Now you notice that when Jacob now had Benjamin, he didn't do it the same way he did Joseph. Even though he had lost Joseph at that point, he had learned from it. He had learned from it. So this is a case in parenting for people who are watching this, who are parents. Please, never make any of your child feel less love or feel less affection from you because you are showing that love and affection to another child. They are all your children, just like God to us. We know that God loves us all, and we all feel special because of the love that God has for us. Each and every one of us feels special in our own individual way. That's why God is God. I don't know how God does it, but each and every one of us feels special. We feel like we are the apple of God's eye. So as a parent, either a mom or a dad, never make any of your children feel like one is more special than others. That's what Jacob did to Joseph, that set Joseph up for failure from his brothers. Because before they even hated Joseph for his dream, they already hated him because of the love the father was showing him that he was not showing them. And funny, Jacob may just be doing it innocently. That's why you never know how much your actions affect others. Jacob may just have been doing it innocently. But then his other children didn't think of it like that. They're like, Jacob, Baba Jacob, don't be so, we did here too. Are you getting this? So this is a very important case in parenting. Never make any of your child feel more loved or less loved than others, because it creates a certain level of rivalry amongst them. That is unspoken. That's unspoken. So this is the second lesson that I want you to pay attention to in this story of Joseph. The second lesson, quite interesting, is a case in parenting. You have children, as much as it lies between you, let them feel loved and affection equally. Let them feel love and affection equally. There are other ways to inspire them to get the best out of them. Never use parents even do it and say, "Oh, can't you see your brother? Can't you see your sister?" Parents even compare. You have no idea what you are doing to the child esteem when you compare the child to the sibling, especially when you are comparing the elder to the younger. Say, can't you see your younger brother? Can't you see your younger sister? You have no idea what it does to them. You have no idea. And in this case, Joseph was the youngest before Benjamin came. Joseph was the youngest. And Jacob was making them feel like Joseph was the eldest by virtue of him reporting to him being more accountable, him being the one that always tells him what was happening. No. It's a very good case in parenting. And this is why I tell people all the time that the Bible is a very complete book. It's a very complete book. It's not a religious book. It's a manual for living, very complete. It has all the lessons that you would ever need to learn in your life. Like I just showed you now, this is the case in parenting. I know today parenting is an issue in the world today. Especially now that there are a lot of divorces and broken homes. Parenting is an issue. So lesson number 2 is a case in parenting. Lesson number 3, dream and interpretation. Lesson 3, dream and interpretation. Now, what you see about this is quite striking. You know, we've been meant to believe that, oh, Joseph had a unique gift of dream and interpretation. Not entirely true. Not entirely true. The brothers could interpret. The father could interpret. So in their household, in their lineage, dream and interpretation was not a big deal. I want you to let that sink in. Dream and interpretation was not a big deal. But with the way the story is always painted, it felt like Joseph had this special gift of dream and interpretation. Prior to this time, Jacob had the dream and he saw angels descending and ascending. And then he woke up and said, "Oh, God has been in this place and I did not know." And he erected an altar there and called the place Bethel. That was him having a dream. Right? Also, when Laban was trying to cheat Jacob out, he had the dream and he was told what to do, to put the shields in front of the animals, that when they go and drink and eat, they would see it, and then when they gave birth to spots and speckles and all of that. That happened to him in the dream. So it's not strange that Joseph could have dream and interpretation, or the brothers could interpret his dream. No, it wasn't strange. But the way it has been put out, to mean like, oh, it was only Joseph that had the special dream anointing or the gift of dream and interpretation. Not true. Because when Joseph had his dream and told his brothers, they said, "Does this mean that we are going to bow before you?" They could interpret the dream. And then when he had the second dream, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed before him, they said again, "Does this mean?" Even the father said, "Do you mean that even me and your mother will bow before you?" They had interpretation. But what they really did not understand was the fact that the Egyptian god was the god of the sun and the moon. So it was even way beyond just them bowing to Joseph, but even the gods of Egypt will bow down to the supremacy of the God of Joseph. So why am I bringing this up? This is to let you know that dream and interpretation is not something special. You as a believer, you are connected to the Abrahamic covenant. You have a right to have dreams and know the interpretation of those dreams. Are you getting this? So you eventually when the butler and the baker had a dream, it was easy for Joseph because Joseph knew that this is where I'm coming from now. We dream and interpret. It's a normal thing. It's not a big deal. Come here, let me tell you the oh my word. Come, let me tell you the meaning of the dreams. It's not that deep. It's not that deep. It's not that serious. Why? Because on a norms, dream and interpretation is basic for Joseph and his family, where he's coming from. So when the whole nation of Egypt could not interpret Pharaoh's dream, Joseph was just like, man, this is my turn to shine. Like, come on, bring it on. Bring it on. No, we're going to get there and we'll talk more about it. But my point here in this is to let you know that dream and interpretation should be normal for you. Just like it was normal with Joseph and his brothers and even his father. It was normal. It wasn't like something that was a divine gift, so to speak. No. It's normal for you to be able to have dream and interpret it. You must let that settle within you. I don't have the gift of dream and gift of adaptation. No, it's a norm for you. So the covenant that you are connected to, the Abrahamic covenant that you're connected to, it is a norm for you to be able to have dream and interpret the dream. It's one of those tools you already have in your arsenal. Are you getting this? For us as humans, we have certain tools in our arsenal, things that we can do that are like follow come already. Dream and interpretation are one of those things in your arsenal. Not the football club, your arsenal. Your arsenal, not the football club. Oh, yeah, your arsenal. Right? So it wasn't something out of this world for them to have a dream or interpret. Right? The only thing that I felt really would pain the brothers was the fact that Joseph's dream always painted them to be in servitude to him in the dream. And then he did not keep the dream to himself. He always came back to tell them. He always come back and tell them like, oh, I've had this dream. And whenever he tells them the dream, based on the fact that they already hated him when the father was showing him love, excess love that they were not receiving, and now coupled with the dream that he had, and the dream depicting them to serve him, they hated him more. It's just normal, like someone that you already hate coming to tell you more about their progress. You just hate them the more, like, come on, what is all of this? So that was just the thing with the brothers. Like, we don't like you. Yes, they are our brother, but we don't like you because our father likes you and he doesn't like us. So because of that, we don't like you. And now you're having a dream depicting us to serve you in the dream. So you know what? I'm going to hate you even more. And that's what scripture says. And they hated him the more. He hated him the more. And then he would dream again and he would still go back to tell them. Why? He had so much accountability. He would share with his brothers. Now, the more they hated you, that felt like, oh, just at least have sense. Like, keep to yourself. Have sense. Don't go and be talking to these guys. They really don't have your back. They don't like you. But Joseph was the person who saw the best in people, for lack of a better word. Joseph could not believe that his brothers would ever harm him. Yes, he knew that perhaps they really did not vibe with him, but he didn't believe that they could harm him. He didn't believe. He just felt he felt it was probably one of those banter that you get at home. They just bant, we just talk. He never believed that they could show him shege. He never believed it. He never believed it. So lesson number 3, dream and interpretation. It's something that is not spooky. It's something that is not out of this world. It's something that is in your nature, right? You can dream and you can have interpretation of your dream. Are you getting this? It's something that is covenant bound for you. So you see what happened with Nebuchadnezzar. When he had the dream, Daniel came and interpreted the dream. Even when there was the handwriting on the wall that happened, Daniel also came and interpreted it. So you see, this thing with dream and interpretation is follow come for the child of God. It's follow come. As long as you are in alignment to God's spirit, you will have clear interpretation of the dream. Clear interpretation. You may be asking, okay, but I dream, I used to forget. Is it possible for me to remember my dream? Yes, it's possible. Go back to sleep and ask God to help you to remember the dream. It will come like a movie that you press pause and now you press play. You come back. You come back. So lesson number 3, dream and interpretation. So let's move on to lesson number 4. Lesson number 4 on Joseph's story part 1. We see the lesson on hate. The lesson on hate. Now, why this lesson is quite interesting is this. Joseph would not believe that anyone would hate him. You know, what this is one is the fact that the people who live their lives doing minding their business, just doing their thing, just being who they are, they have no idea the number of hates they have garnered over the years. Sometimes when people tell me, I really don't like you, I'm like, what is there not to like about me? Like, really? What is there not to like about me? But now I understand better. I understand better. You know, sometimes people just hate you because you remind them of who they can be that they are not. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. People just hate you because you remind them of who they can be that they are not. So because of that, they hate you. So tell me, what is it to hate in a 17-year-old Joseph? He didn't have any property. He didn't have anything. He didn't have anything to his name as Joseph. But why did he hate? Because he was just being himself. So you see, people can hate you for being yourself. People can hate you for you having... Now, this was not a reality. This was just a dream. How do you hate somebody for his dream? Did they not say that dream is free? Can anybody not dream? Why hate somebody for his dream? Literally, think about it. Why hate somebody for his dream? Anybody can dream. They say dreaming is free. You can dream. Why will I hate you because of your dream? Think about it. Why should I hate you because of your dream? Because if you look through scripture, in Genesis 37, he told them the dream, they hated him. He told them the dream again, they hated him the more. And scripture was explicit. He said they hated him. And hate is a strong word. And you see, when people hate you, you see it in 2 things. In their words and in their actions. When they hate you. You can't hide hate. You will see it. You see it in their words and you see it in their action. So when Joseph went to Dothan, as the stranger had directed him that, oh, they've gone to Dothan, they've left Shechem and they've gone to Dothan. When they saw him from afar off, they identified him from his coat of many colors. So when they saw him from afar, they said, see Joseph is coming. Okay. They say, see, we will kill him and we will see what will become of his dream. So that tells you why they hated him, his dream, nothing more. Yes, they hated him because the father loved him more than he loved them. But then what now was the peak of their hatred was his dream. How do people hate you for dream? It's not even a reality yet. It's a dream. Something that you dreamt of. Not even real. People can have weird dreams. They can dream any and everything. Imagine somebody telling you they hate you today now because of your dream. Now, I'm not talking about your dream of what you want to become. Your dream that you had at night and you told them they now hate you because of the dream. Because of how they were depicted in the dream. It's a dream. For crying out loud, it's a dream. But guess what? They hated him the more because of his dream. And they said, okay, that's him coming from afar. See what we'll do? We will kill him. See, I told you hate is revealed in words and actions. They hated him to the point that they were willing to kill him. And he said, we will kill him and we will see what will now become of the dream. The scripture tells us that if the devil had known, he would not have crucified Jesus. If he had known that killing Jesus was actually helping Jesus fulfill his mission, he would not have. They would allow Jesus to become very old on the earth. If only the brothers had also known that their hatred towards Joseph was actually being used to position Joseph towards where God was leading him to. If only they knew. See these guys. There are so many things you need to understand about God and how God works. The brothers, they hated him. It was sin in their words. It was sin in their actions. So when Joseph came close, first off, they stripped him of his coat of many colors. They said, this coat. She mean that this coat, they make you feel like saying the buga, right? This coat, they removed it. And then they put him in a pit. Somebody who had just come to check up on you guys, who had come for your welfare, you're putting him in a pit. And then they started to eat the food that Joseph brought to them. They're having supper. So, hate is a very terrible thing. People do stupid things when they hate. People do things they will later regret when they hate. And we see it from Joseph's story of how hate played a role through his brothers towards him. Lesson number 5, as we begin to wrap this up, because we have just 6 lessons and want to tie it up today. Lesson number 5. Can you guess what lesson number 5 is? Yes. Lesson 5. Guess lesson number 5. Let me see if you can guess. Lesson number 5. Very deep lesson. Trauma, pain, hurts. TPH. Lesson number 5. The brothers, because they all felt they were not loved the way Joseph was loved, they had a trauma bonding. The enemy of my enemy is, how do they say it? The enemy of my enemy is my friend or something, right? How do they say that thing? The enemy of my enemy is what? When you see somebody who hates somebody else that you already hate, both of you have a way you bond to not hate the person. Exactly. That's what happened to the brothers. They had a steady kind of trauma bonding because they felt Joseph was the special child and they were not special children. So they had this bond that we are the ones who are the black sheep. We are the ones who are not loved. We are the ones who do not receive affection from our father. So they had this bond among themselves. Notice that when they were going to buy food later down the line in Egypt, they did not go with Benjamin. It was Joseph that had to specially request that they bring Benjamin. Why? Because Jacob did not allow Benjamin to get into their mix because he noticed that these guys, they are united in one accord. Even Joseph did not become a pal with them because they felt like Joseph was the one who was snitching on them. So another lesson we could see was how people have trauma bonding. Felt like, okay, our father didn't like us. He likes only Joseph. No problem. We that we know we are not like, we will like ourselves. And then you could see the pain that that brought to them. And that's the reason why they inflict the same pain on Joseph. He said, let's kill him. And they said, no, 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 let's not put blood on our hand. Let's not kill him. Let's put him in the pit first. Let's put him in the pit. Let's not kill him yet. Now, the guy who was saying, let's put him in the pit, Reuben, was doing that because he wanted to come back and take Joseph out. But the others had other plans. Say, no, we must get rid of this guy completely, either by hook or by crook. We're going to get rid of him. And then they saw the Ishmaelites coming. I said, okay, since we're not going to kill him, let's sell him. So at least he probably would die in the hands of the Ishmaelites. So in their mind, Joseph's possible outcome would be death. He probably would not be able to survive slavery. He would die. So they sold him for 20 pieces of silver. And then they killed an animal and poured the animal blood on his clothes and took it back to his father and said Joseph was torn by a wild animal and Joseph is dead. And Jacob mourned and was in pain. But then the last part of this thing is the hurt. Joseph seeing his own brothers, the one to which he truly cared for, the one that he heard that they were gone from Shechem to Dothan, and he continued searching for them to Jotan, the one that he would go and report to his father for, the brothers that he cared about were the ones who not only stripped him of his clothes, put him in a pit, and received money from the Ishmaelites and sold him off as a slave. No hurt can be worse than that, knowing that the people that you cared the most had just betrayed you. The hurt. The hurt. You know, there are things you don't know about some people, and you feel like, okay, after all, I don't know about these things from this guy, so it's fine. But seeing this happen, if such a thing happened to you from a stranger, in your mind, he's a stranger, so no problem. He's a stranger, anything goes. But then from your own brothers, the hurt is different. Like they say, it hits differently. From your own brothers, they were willing and able to sell you off into slavery. And they know it fully well that you are taken into Egypt. You're going to be far away, and you most likely not survive. And they were okay to do that for 20 pieces of silver. That hurts. I don't know which perspective you want to see it from, but that hurts. You know, imagine what somebody will do to you is different from actually seeing the person do it to you. I can imagine the hurt that Joseph would have felt, seeing that he was being bound hand and feet and put amongst other slaves, and his own brothers receiving 20 pieces of silver that they've collected because they have sold him. Imagine that scenario for a second. He's being thrown into the cart or put on top the donkey or the camel, and they are going. And the brothers are just there watching him being taken away into slavery. Picture that for a second. Knowing that you were not captured, knowing that you were not robbed, knowing that you were not forcefully taken, but your own brothers, your own flesh and blood. They were the ones who conspired to sell you into slavery. That hurts. That hurts. Have you ever felt hurt when people lie on you? Like this is a lie, and they are telling you with all seriousness as though it is the truth. And they are lying. You know how you feel. You almost want to shed tears, or sometimes you even shed tears. You cry, you feel bad, you feel hurt. Imagine being sold into slavery by your own brothers. That hits different. That hurt is different. That hurt is different. That hurt is different. And then the last lesson from this part 1, as we begin to tie this up, lesson number 6, last lesson for part 1, as we begin to tie this up, is this: mercy. Yeah. Mercy. I said the other time that the whole lesson of Jonah was a lesson of mercy. A lesson of mercy. The whole sub-story, subplot of Jonah was a story of mercy. Nothing more but mercy. Mercy. And here we find the same thing playing out in Joseph's story, mercy. Now let me tell you how the mercy played out. First, they intended to kill him. And then it switched from killing to selling. That's mercy. Because if they had killed Joseph, that would have been the end of Joseph. And they still would have gone back to lie that an animal killed him. But mercy intervened. And they switched and said, no, okay, let's not kill him, let's sell him. That's mercy. That's mercy. It moved from killing to selling. Even though they felt like, okay, even if we sell him, probably we'll still die in Egypt, so let's not just kill him ourselves. But that alone was the turning point for Joseph's story. Because if they had killed him at Dothan, that would have been the end of Joseph. Because I assure you, those brothers would have confirmed that Joseph was dead. They would not kill him and then Joseph will not die. No, they will confirm Joseph's death and bury him in a shallow grave, an unmarked shallow grave. But mercy intervened and they said, okay, let's not kill him, let's sell him. And then the Ishmaelites who bought Joseph did not just take Joseph and go and sell Joseph in slave markets. They sold Joseph to their premium customer, Potiphar, the captain of Pharaoh's guard in Egypt. So Joseph did not go into the mainstream slave market. He was taken to a premium client, Potiphar. That also is mercy. Because if Joseph did not go to Potiphar's house, he would never have gone to prison. And if he didn't go to prison, he would never have met the butler and the baker. If he didn't meet the butler and the baker, when Pharaoh had the dream, the butler would not have remembered that there was a Joseph. You see, all of the things that happened to Joseph was being directed by mercy. No wonder Lawrence Oyo sang the song Favor, and one of the lines goes, mercy. Do you understand? The mercy of God. It works in ways we cannot fully explain. I tell people sometimes that even some of your biggest disappointments, in hindsight, you look at it that they were the mercy of God for your life. They were the mercy of God for your life. The things that you felt, come on, this thing should not have happened to me, they are acts of God's mercy for your life. Imagine if they had gone ahead with their plans to actually kill Joseph in Dothan. That would have been the end of Joseph completely. No other story we'll be talking about. That's been the end, like QED, the end for Joseph. And see, the fact that Reuben even thought to even come and save him, that's also mercy. Reuben that was with them was also planning to come and save Joseph and take him away and return him back to their father. That was still mercy. See these guys. These are 6 amazing lessons that we can learn from the life of Joseph that is still applicable in our day today. 1, personal values. Very important. You must have them. And we could see the personal values in Joseph is that accountability, is integrity, is attention to detail. You could see the personal values in Joseph. Number 2, let's say a case in parenting. On no account should you make any of your child feel less, either through your love and affection you show to others. Never make any of your child feel less. As much as possible, show them love equally. 3rd lesson, dream and interpretation is not anything special. As long as you are part of the Abrahamic covenant, you have access to dream and interpretation. Number 4, hate. And I told you that people would demonstrate their hate in their words and in their actions. They told themselves when they saw Joseph coming, let us kill him and see what will become of his dream. And when he actually came, they ripped him off his coat of many colors, put him in a pit, and then they sold him off. Hate. Hate is real. People can hate you just because you are being yourself. They can hate you for no reason. See, you must settle this in your heart that people can hate you for no reason. So what did I do that I hate you? You don't have to do anything for them to hate you. They just hate you because you remind them of who they can be that they have not yet become. So that's why they hate you. Lesson number 5, trauma, pain, and hurt. You see, Joseph went through all of this. The shock that his own brothers stripped him of his coat of many colors. His own brothers put him in an empty pit. His own brothers sold him to the Ishmaelites as a slave. The trauma, the pain, the hurt. He experienced all of this in one. Knowing that he was never going to see his father again for a very long time. He was never going back home again. He was never going to feel special and feel loved anymore. The trauma, the pain, the hurt, he felt all in one when he moved from being the one with the coat of many colors to the one in slave clothes. And finally, the act of mercy. That's number 6, mercy. They could have killed him, but instead they sold him. That was mercy. And then he could have been thrown into the mainstream slave market, but yet he was sold to a premium client, Potiphar. That also is mercy. So these are 6 amazing lessons to learn from the story of Joseph, part 1. Now, I'd like you to leave your comments. Leave your comments on what you learned and what was your favorite lesson. Yeah, I want you to do that for us. I want you to leave your comments on what you learned from this and what was your favorite lesson among the 6. Wow. Have you been blessed? Have you been inspired? Have you been challenged? Have you learned something today? Welcome again to the month of February, month filled with love, but then so much learnings that we'll give with love to you. Hope you've learned something. I look forward to seeing your comment. I look forward to hearing which among these lessons was your favorite in Joseph Part 1. And I can't wait for us to continue this next time so we can learn more from the person of Joseph. See, guys, Joseph's story is not just one for the books. It's one that we can still apply to our lives today. And that's the essence of us doing this, because it's very applicable in our very life. So, guys, thank you so much for being with us again today. And like we always say, there's always more on the upgrade side of life. And that's why we encourage you to leave good behind so that you can upgrade. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you. Hey, by the way, do what to share with your friends, your family, your loved ones, and even your enemies, even your haters. Share this with them because this will bless them. Thank you.